I am joined today by Texas Tech Everything admin Daniel Vermillion, who started the account and also started Everything U. So some big social media channels you should definitely go check out. We got some Illinois Texas Tech conversation going on, and obviously there's a lot of things surrounding Texas Tech. So definitely wanted to get somebody on. And Daniel, thanks for joining today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk and get through this all.
Yeah, absolutely. So real quick, just so people know, tell us a little bit about Texas Tech Everything and the Everything U, kind of how it got started, and what's like your main goal of having these accounts.
So I started Texas Tech Everything in 2019. It was the year Tech made the national championship game in basketball. I was a lot younger then and kind of just did it for fun, not thinking anything of it. Because I mean, I'm from Lubbock, been a huge Tech fan my whole life, so that's kind of when it got started. And then after the championship, I didn't really post much because it was the off season, not much going on. And then during COVID, I had a lot of free time. Started practicing like graphic design and Photoshop and all that. And then later on, like I've just kept posting on Texas like everything, and it got bigger and bigger, especially from last football season. It grew a ton. And then I had the idea to start the Everything U, which is kind of just like I like to use the word like how Barstool did it with all the different campus affiliates. Like there's a Texas Tech page, an Alabama page. We don't have an Illinois one yet. We'll probably get one soon, but we just have all different colleges like that.
Yeah, and so did you grow up, going to Tech games? What's like? Tell us a little bit about your Tech background and maybe a big memory you have of being a Texas Tech fan.
Yeah, I've been going to Tech games as long as I can remember. Like my parents both went to Tech. My grandparents went to Tech. My great grandpa was actually the first foreign-born graduate from Texas Tech. So I have a lot of Texas Tech genes in me. I've loved Tech my whole life. But yeah, I think the most memorable game I've been to is probably one that we've lost because I haven't really been good at football that long. I'll say two. I'll say football and basketball. For football, it was when we had Patrick Mahomes and TCU was number 3. I think we lost 55-52. They won like with 20 seconds left. It was like 4th and goal, and it was like they had Trevon Boykin that tipped pass in the back of the end zone. I don't know if you remember that. That was heartbreaking when I was a lot younger. But basketball, I'd say my favorite game was when Chris Beard returned to Lubbock. He left for Texas, and then I was like, I guess 3 years after he made the championship, and that game was completely packed 2 hours before tip off, and was probably the best environment I've ever been a part of any sport. But yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah, they've definitely had some big moments in both sports, obviously the last few years. And I'm a few years older than you, and I remember my first Tech memory was Michael Crabtree. I vaguely remember his catch against Texas to beat them. And yeah, and then basketball, I know they've had some big games, and Illinois and Texas Tech have now had a big game last year. But before we get into the Illinois side of things, I wanted to get a take. Obviously the Brendan Sorsby thing and has been a huge deal in all of college sports, and I listen to a lot of pro sport podcasts and stuff, and they've been talking about it. So I wanted to hear from your perspective, from being inside the fan base and what people are saying and everything. What was sort of the other side of the Brendan Sorsby situation? What were kind of Tech fans talking about, and what was kind of the positive spin that Texas Tech was really trying to ride home on?
Yeah, so for me, I actually found out, I knew about the gambling thing. It got announced like that Monday, late April maybe. I knew about a week before then, so I had like all of my posts ready and prepped. And then I remember because it got announced Monday, that Friday or Saturday before, George Strait was in Lubbock for like a concert at Jones AT&T Stadium. So there's a picture of Sorsby with famous golfer who went to Tech, Ludwig Oberg. I don't know if you know who that is. There's a picture of them, and everyone was like talking about it and so excited. And I was like, in a few days, everyone's going to be faced like a lot different. And so I guess once the news finally came out Monday and I posted and like distributed and all that, it finally hit me that like he probably won't be playing or is in a lot of trouble. Because before that, like I heard it and I was like, okay, but I didn't really think of it as a big deal. But after that, like things picked up quickly with like the backlash and all that. And so I was like, okay, whatever. He probably won't play. And then I started reading like him, and he got his famous lawyer Jeffrey Kessler, who has won several cases against the NCAA. He basically never loses. So we hired him, and then I read like the court filing they sent out, and I was like, well, he actually might have a chance to play. Like the argument they used was pretty good, and the NCAA was pretty hypocritical the way they went about it. I think they thought they had it in the bag a lot, like more than they actually did. And so whenever the court case ended up happening and all that, I like listened to all that because it was in Lubbock. And when I heard that, I knew he was going to get his injunction, even without the attorney, or not the attorney, the judge. Because so everyone, I've seen a lot of people say that it was a Texas Tech judge from Lubbock County. That's not the case. Then like people like Kirk Herbstreit have went on ESPN talking about how local judges need to stay out, and that's a bad misconception because there was a local judge, a Texas Tech alum, but he recused himself due to conflict of interest. So the administrative judge in the state of Texas got to pick, and the administrative judge was an A&M alum, I think, A&M or Texas, and he chose Judge Ken Curry, who's a Houston law graduate from Fort Worth. So there's no conflict of interest in the whole case, but I think a lot of people, they hear the word gambling in college sports, and obviously I think like the suspension is there. He shouldn't be allowed to play because of that. But the hate he was getting, and especially Texas Tech, is what really surprised me, because Texas Tech, I feel like they did what any other school would have done. They stood behind their quarterback, their player, and if he actually ruined the integrity of the game, he wouldn't have got the injunction. He gambled, and he probably should have been suspended the whole season, but Tech ruled him ineligible, the NCAA ruled him ineligible, and he won the court case against the judge. Should that be allowed to happen? That's the issue. I feel like everyone hating on Texas Tech for doing all the right things, not hiding anything, is an issue. And so I feel like Tech fans, like, they just got a little frustrated with it all. And I think that's where the university messed up. That 21-minute podcast video they put on Twitter was not a good idea. They should have just kept quiet about it all. I'm telling you, if they kept quiet, he would still be he'd be playing football this fall for Tech. I'm pretty sure whenever so you know that Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton put out that statement basically threatening the Big 12, which Texas Tech kind of wanted him to do. And so that statement right there gave the Big 12 a way to, I'm going to phrase this correctly. It allowed them to file a lawsuit against Texas Tech, and they would have been able to stop Tech from playing in the Big 12 championship game. And then it would have allowed them to fine them and put all sorts of sanctions on them. If he never threatened the Big 12, and if they would have kept quiet, they couldn't have stopped. No one could have stopped Sorsby from playing. The injunction wouldn't have allowed any of that to happen, and he'd be playing this fall. But I think they heard all the backlash, and they were trying to save face, and it did not go the right way. But I've seen a lot from my DMs, my comments. It's been a fun few weeks, but yeah, it's really been interesting.
Yeah, stuff like this definitely isn't bad for content. That's for sure.
No,
and definitely for clicks and engagement and all that. And I'm sure you get a lot of Texas fans and a lot of A&M fans and all that stuff. And that's funny to hear you say that you thought the video was a bad idea, because it really
no one even watched it, but like putting that out there, it's like trying to save face over something that they had nothing to do over anyways. It makes them look more guilty than they are.
Right. It really does. And I think you are right, though. It's super easy to critique from the other side of the argument. I'm sure I think every SEC school 1,000% would have done the same thing.
And I know he's not the only player gambling too.
No, definitely not.
He's the only one who's gotten caught.
Yeah, right. I think it definitely looked bad from the outside, but you know, it's over now. And I agree that a lot of other schools would have done the same thing. And it's interesting to hear more about the law side of things, and like maybe some more details into what happened and everything. And no, I don't think by any means this would have like destroyed the integrity of the game. It's like, okay, but I think the biggest problem is just if you did have somebody that had gotten caught, like literally rigging games or
they could use the same argument.
Yes, 100%. And then they could get away with it.
I agree. That's the issue. I feel like the hate should have gone towards the judge and not towards Texas Tech or Sorsby, because of course Sorsby's going to want to get his last year of eligibility back, no matter what. Anyone would. But the thing that, I don't know if you saw the ESPN article, or I guess headline or notification they put out yesterday, how Cincinnati denied knowing about the Sorsby stuff for 2 years. I want to see. Hopefully they. What I'm hoping is that the NCAA investigates that, because if this is as big of a deal as everyone's making it out to be, and if they knew about it for 2 years or they didn't, but I think it would do everyone an injustice if the NCAA didn't investigate all that, because Sorsby claimed they knew, his agent claimed they knew. I've seen other things about how Cincinnati's known and just kept quiet, because I know they knew he was gambling on one thing, so they brought him in and had like a conversation one time, but that was it with Sorsby, and they just moved on. And so I'm not saying they like leaked it, because it got told that the sports books got tipped off and they told the NCAA, but I feel like the timing of it coming out now is pretty strange. And I'd be kind of shocked if them or Indiana didn't know about it.
Yeah, I could see Indiana because he wasn't like the star quarterback, right? But
They
like
just kept it quiet.
Right, at Cincinnati, you're right. I mean, there's at least a few people in the program or whatever that knows everything that's going on. Like,
Some of his teammates probably know, and more like
yes, exactly. And just from like the few people I know that actually are like somewhat connected, and then from working at the University of Illinois, like people know what these athletes are doing. They try to keep it in, as in-house as possible. But yeah, it's crazy that he's moving on. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the supplemental draft and everything. But feels like the NCAA kind of something good happened for the NCAA for the first time. I'm not saying that was right or that was the.
No, I agree.
Like the NCAA has to be like, oh my gosh, we finally got the better end of a deal for the first time. And I don't feel bad for the NCAA at all. They messed up everything. So
I think that's the whole issue, like how we got the injunction. If rules were set out better and they were able to actually enforce these things, this wouldn't have been an issue at all.
Right.
But they've lost so much control, they can't do anything.
The NCAA, it's kind of come out that they don't really have that much power anyway. Like you can kind of do whatever you want or go get a judge and do whatever.
Just like Chambliss. He was out of eligibility and they just kept appealing it. And there he goes. Now he's playing one more year.
That might be a worse, more like harsh thing to NCAA and just like college sports in general, and is these things. And yeah, it's sad. I mean, I'm not even that old, but it's just crazy how much college sports have changed, and they'll continue to change, but hopefully for the better. Cool. So that was cool to recap and hear the other side of the Brendan Sorsby situation. Illinois and Texas Tech are playing in basketball this upcoming fall. And we played last year an amazing game. Illinois handled the first half, and then JT Toppin went absolutely nuts. And that was just a really back and forth game. But first of all, Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn was a really good player at Illinois. And he's one of the players that, which I'm sure you've had this at Tech a lot too, he transfers, but you understand it. And it's not really like a ton of negativity. Now, there's been a couple of things that have come out about him since he left, like about him and maybe some tension with the staff, but like Illinois fans still love DGL, and a lot of fans wanted him to stay because they saw the potential, and he definitely had moments. So again, I'm sure Tech has had a lot of players like that. What's kind of the fan base thinking about DGL? What's his outlook for this season? Kind of what's the temperature on him for Texas Tech?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism. Our backcourt is, especially with Toppin out this first half of the season, is going to be our strong suit. Him and Cruz Davis, the Hofstra transfer from Alabama, or not from Alabama, the Hofstra transfer, he played Alabama in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Those two are our two star point guards. They both averaged over 20 a game last year. So I don't know if there's going to be like which one of them is going to be the point guard or shooting guard. They might mix it up a little bit. But I think the expectations for DGL are pretty big after last year. I think the staff wants him to be a 15-plus a game scorer. He's able to drive. They're kind of doing a different method than last year. Last year, it was just Toppin, and then everyone around him was just a bunch of shooters. This year, I think they're getting people who can drive to the basket and can shoot. And I feel like he's a really good fit, especially when JT Toppin comes back from his ACL. DGL, Cruz Davis, and Toppin will be a good, like, 1-2 and then big man punch together.
Yeah, so that leads me to, I think you said there's only 9 players roughly on the roster right now. And you see this more and more now with the transfer portal, and like LSU, there was, until last month, they had like nobody on the roster. Who are the certain players that are going to be back, and sort of like, what's the outlook with this team, knowing a few guys have transferred, left for the NBA, but it sounds like you got a couple studs coming in too.
So there's a lot of pessimism from all the fans just because there's only 9 players on the roster and we're almost in July. But I will say we have some European guys that are coming in. McCaslin talked about how the transfer portal wasn't as good as it usually is, which I feel like it is true this year. It was kind of not as top heavy or not as many players that enter as usual. So like LSU, they're going almost full international and European. They have one non-foreign player, I think, and it's Mo Diabate. But yeah, we have some guys coming in from Europe, which I don't know when they'll get in, but for right now, the returning players we have are JT Toppin, and there's a lot of uncertainty how he'll come back from his ACL injury. We have Mario Aquentock. He's a big man. He hasn't had much playing time before. And then another, I guess he's a forward, Josiah Mosley. He's coming back. And then we have a walk-on big, Latrell Hoover. And besides that, it's basically all a portal and European players. So, like, our whole backcourt is going to be new with DGL, Cruz Davis. And then we got a 4 to 5-star, depending on the platform, Dakari Spear coming in. So the one thing we're lacking really is wings, but I feel like people just need to get patient but we'll have a team by the time the season starts. It just takes longer to get these European guys in. Because I know y'all know a lot about the European guys. Illinois took that all the way to the Final Four last year. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say is like Illinois fans know exactly what you're talking about. Last summer, I think that really actually hurt Illinois and why they didn't come on until like the middle of the season as much because we had a few of our key guys either hurt or dealing with visa stuff or playing for their team internationally. So totally get how that goes. It'll be interesting. Like we returned most of the international guys, so thankfully they're on campus right now. But I'm sure Underwood would agree with bringing in that style of play and that skill and everything. So what's been the vibe in general just about Grant McCaslin? And it's been an interesting time period for Tech basketball, right? They, like you said, they made the national title and then, Beard leaves and I'm sure football is king. So kind of what's that relationship like and have fans started to buy in and pay more attention or is it just always going to be so far behind football?
Well, after we made the championship, Tech was basketball, basketball, basketball. And then after Chris Beard left, we hired Mark Adams, which was his assistant coach. We were good that 1 year, lost to Duke in the Sweet 16. It was Coach K's last year. They had Paulo, and they had a really good team. But then next year we fired Mark Adams 1 year after that. And then we hired Grant McCaslin and immediately brought us back to March Madness. And then the year before this one, we made the Elite Eight, lost to Florida. And then this year with Toppin, he didn't really go that far in March Madness, got blown out by Alabama. But I think it's kind of mixed. A lot of people thought McCaslin was going to leave for North Carolina. I saw like a lot of people worried about that and stressed about that, but he didn't. He's still here. I think he's one of the best coaches in college basketball. But with football coming up now, I think people are putting more time into football. And so I'm hoping that doesn't affect our basketball with like NIL and how much money is going towards it. It doesn't seem like it, even though like people are worrying about it because we only have 9 players on the team right now. But I think it's more of just wanting to go the European route more than like everyone's just forgetting about basketball. But yeah, football in Texas will always be king. But it's kind of new for us because we haven't been too good at football until recently. And so I feel like it kind of did like a quick just 180 and switched over.
Yeah, who do Tech fans, because in my head it's like Tech hates Texas. Who's Tech's biggest rival?
I'd say like we probably do hate Texas still. There's no really major rivalries in the new Big 12 yet with all the realignment and stuff. Yeah. I know Texas doesn't. We're probably their third like most biggest rival. We hate them way more than they hate us. But I'd say like in the Big 12 right now, Arizona State's starting to because they beat us in football last year. We beat them the year they made the playoffs, and then they were the team we played when Toppin got hurt. And so there's just been like a back and forth between like a lot of those fans. And because of the Sorsby stuff, definitely Cincinnati. I bet that game, we play at Cincinnati this year in football. That'll be a good one. But right now, our biggest like actual rivals are probably TCU and Houston. But we're better in football, so it's not really like a true rivalry yet.
Yeah, there's so many big schools too in Texas. Like there's so many different teams that could be your rival. This is again more of like a selfish question. What is the outlook for the football team coming off, a big year, obviously spending a lot of money? and then the offense kind of falling apart. But I'm sure there's a lot of donors and fans that are like, we're forking up all this money. Like, we got to get back to like, a semifinal or national title. So what's like the outlook, and then what's the temperature of the fan base?
So last year, like the main goal was win the Big 12, which they did, and anything other than that, or like after that, would have been icing on the cake. But we saw against Oregon, our defense was clearly good enough to compete for a national championship, but our offense wasn't there. Baron Morton, he's had a great career for Tech. It just wasn't his day. Sad how it turned out that way. He had a bad game against Oregon. And so I think the donors quickly realized we needed a quarterback to elevate the rest of the offense. So they went and got Brendan Sorsby, thinking he's going to be the one to lead us. But without him, if Will Hammond, he's going to be our quarterback now for the rest of the season. If he tore his ACL last year against Oklahoma State in a game Baron Morton was hurt. He was supposed to be the guy this year anyways. The only thing that stopped that was his ACL, which caused us to get Sorsby. So I still think we're by far and away the best team in the Big 12 still. I don't see any issue with that. Obviously, to make the national championship, it'll be a little tougher without Sorsby. But we have Will Hammond. We have, I think, the best running back room in the country, 3 top 20 running backs. We have the best tight end in the country. And our offense is going to be significantly better even without Sorsby this year. Offensive line's better. The wide receivers are really underrated. And then our defense, I don't think they'll be as good as last year because that was one of the best defenses I think we'll ever see.
Yeah, it'd be hard to live up to.
Exactly. It sucks because I don't think they're going to get talked about as one of the best defenses of all time because just what happened in the playoff game. But I still think our defense this year will be a top 5-10 defense in the country at the very worst. Still a lot of talent. And if Will Hammond can recover from his ACL and just play all right, I think we have a real shot to go far in the playoffs.
Yeah, they definitely still have a lot of talent and are bringing a lot back. And again, the bar's just been raised. Expectations are super high. And that can be – Illinois has not had that much success, obviously, as Texas Tech. But that can become a problem quickly when that's what the fans expect, and it's hard. It's super hard. Granted, when you have more of a budget, like fans might expect more quickly, but it's not easy. It's not a given to just, look at all these schools that just spend, like Kentucky in basketball, just having $1 billion doesn't get you,
You can't just spend money on anything. You still have to do it the right way and have good coaching and good cohesion between the team.
Texas A&M, that's a great example. They had so much money and it didn't.
Texas football last year, they spent more than anyone and didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people talking about like Tech only being good because of money, but Texas spent more and didn't even make the playoffs. So
yeah. Now it'll be. Is there any? I think the last question I got for you, is there any fear? I imagine Tech would be fine because of their donor base, and they've been a lot better at football and stuff recently. Is there any fear like amongst the Big 12 that, oh crap, we're going to collapse or we're going to fall behind the Big 10 and the SEC? Like, what's kind of the vibe in the Big 12? You would say?
Well, it's interesting because like the Protect the College Sports Act just got pushed to the Senate today. Actually, I think it's the first ever college sports bill to do that. And I know the SEC and Big 10 are both really against that. But the Big 12, I think it was going to be fine. And then this whole thing with Sorsby and everything. And I know this is minor, but whenever the Big 12 commissioner got rid of the Tech tortillas, that made the donors kind of upset with the Big 12 over like a small tradition like that being stopped completely. So Texas Tech brings in a lot of money. I know Utah wants to go to the Big 10 as well. So we'll see if Tech and Utah end up wanting to leave the Big 12. I think it will collapse, especially because of what's happened recently. And I know Tech's not happy with the Big 12 at all in this whole situation. So I don't want to say like Tech's keeping the Big 12 intact, but if Tech does leave, it'll cause a ripple and waterfall. And I think the ACC, Big 10, and SEC would end up absorbing all the Big 12 teams, which I don't want. I like the Big 12, but after everything that's happened, it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it would. I see like why certain people want it to happen, why the TV, people want it to happen, but it would. It's like, all right, we've already changed the conferences enough. It would really change college football if we just have 2 super teams, but we'll see. We'll see what's going to happen. And yeah, no, thanks so much, Daniel. This has been awesome insight. I know Illinois and Texas Tech don't overlap a ton, but obviously Dra Gibbs-Lawhorn and playing in basketball this year. And then I was just curious about to get an inside scoop on the Sorsby situation. So Yeah, tell us a little bit, plug your stuff. You got anything big planned coming up, or where can people follow you, all that stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me on the Everything U on Instagram. It's our campus page. It's our main one that runs all the different campus affiliates. Then I run Texas Tech Everything on Instagram. We're also on TikTok for the Everything U. We'll soon be on Twitter and YouTube. That's not yet. But yeah, and we'd love to have an Illinois page. If you or anyone else would want to run one, we'd love to have you.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm sure we could find somebody or work something out. And Illinois content, we got some crazy fans, especially for basketball. So
Oh yeah.
But cool. Yeah, thanks again, Daniel, and have a good one. And what did Tech fans say? Wreck 'em?
Wreck 'em. Yeah, wreck 'em.
All right, wreck 'em. Have
Appreciate
a good
it.
one.
Thanks for having me on.
For sure. No, super fun. We'll reconnect sometime.
For sure. Thank you.